Hi, my name is Gwynna Dille. Often I feel kind of an awkwardness around artist statements or artist talks, which is ironic because for a long time I thought that I would be a writer, but largely it's less of the process of writing the talk or giving it, and more so it's what an artist talk is supposed to represent, that I can tell you what my work is about and be sure. And I think you've likely heard the critique that contemporary art is too guided by the contemporary, that culture is over influencing contemporary art. Or maybe a religious friend has said to you that the church should not, or that the culture should not influence the church, but the church influence culture. It's the same sentiment, this idea that I am not the first artist to find that if I can really define my work and tell you what it's about, then I am not pushing it far enough or going beyond myself enough. I'm being too influenced. And I found a kinship in this reading the preface to The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, in which instead of spending the first 2.5 pages of the preface telling you about the book and introducing what he's going to talk about, he spends it apologizing, saying that he's not completely sure why his work is worthwhile, that he isn't certain why you should read it at all, and that he says more than 3 times that he is worried that his main character is not impactful or original enough, which I can't imagine anyone has read The Brothers Karamazov and thought that, but nonetheless, I think there is this sentiment as an artist, like Dostoevsky, I can't tell you why I make what I make as a body of work. I can tell you about the individual piece, what I'm interested in, what I was thinking about when I made it. I can tell you that I went to the Rhode Island School of Design, that my concentration was in ritual rites and holy sites in paganism and Christianity in Northern Europe in the medieval period. I can tell you that I love literature, that I love English murder mysteries. I can tell you that my dad's a screenwriter, and that most of my paintings, including this one, start as something a lot closer to almost like a storyboard than actually a painting sketch. But I cannot tell you as a body of work what they are all about, simply for the same reason Dostoevsky can't. I can say that I had to make it, and it's really important to me that you see it, but I can't tell you why I made it because it's just not finished yet to me. So this work in particular, this one specifically, I was looking a lot at the idea of personal histories and libraries, how we shelve our books, what they say about us, and this idea of kind of scenes within scenes. So this one contains kind of 3 distinct scenes that in my mind are on a collision to run into each other. We have the diners in the back corner, in some kind of dinner party in this grand and strange and fantastical room, which for me, having a surreal setting helps convey to the viewer that this isn't quote unquote real, it's just how it felt. Then we have this character pointing at this wine stain on her outfit as she enters this library space. In between these 2 characters is all this history, all of these books representing sort of everything between them that has been shelved. And then we have this central figure here. It is the largest head I have ever painted. It was very intimidating to start with. But the idea of kind of this, behind her is this history, and behind the history is this woman with the stain, and behind that woman is this whole other long forgotten event. So that piece was really about that kind of a history. And then I continued the book motif. When you come over to this one, so this painting was, in essence, initially really an experiment. It's done on wood panel, and I carved it out. And I was thinking of this image that I had had in my head for a long time of a shoe trampling on flowers, which I found in crowd reception is very shocking and uncomfortable to people, which surprised me. But there was this image I had had for a long time in my head, and I put it on the panel, and then I began to gut and carve out the panel in the hopes of sort of framing these central pieces and showing sort of the destruction, not just on the surface, not just in the image, but in a base interior layer. And then under here is again that motif of the histories, the books, the things we shelve. Each of these is done with a different base material. So it's like pumice and gel gloss, crackle paste, silver leaf, gold leaf. But the idea of there's all stacked under this kind of violence and this motion are these histories that amounted to it. So it's still trying to push that same idea. And then this one here, this one I did when I got married. So it'd been about 1.5 years ago. And it comes, the first image you see, it's kind of a painting on a painting, right? There's these crossbars have the image of 2 women speaking, and then the initial one has this kind of strange falling girl falling into this man. So this central front image comes from William Blake's etching, Soul Meeting the Body, which I always thought was a really beautiful metaphor for marriage and falling in love. It's kind of the soul meeting the body. So I have this central image. It's in front of the Chateau Marmont, which is where we had our honeymoon. And then we have behind it this image of these 2 women talking, which is something I spent a lot of time doing leading up to my marriage, is with my best friend talking about getting married, talking about what it would change, what it meant, talking about getting married when I was 24 and feeling really young. And it was all very surreal and strange. And so it's sort of these 2 histories compounding on each other. And then over these 2, so this one I did first. This one was following the idea of the Gitrish, which in folklore, it's largely Northern European folklore, but there's different terms for the Gitrish that show up in different cultures. And the Gitrish is the beast that meets you along your journey and either leads you astray or to your destination. So you see it like in Jane Eyre. Rochester's Black Horse is a Gitrish. You see it in many ways. People have made the argument that Beauty and the Beast is the Gitrish. So you have this mythical figure meeting them on their journey through this like sort of strange, almost like castle architecture in this sort of knotted garden. And the idea of what you feed to it, which came out of the image from Roman Holiday with Audrey Hepburn, when she goes to stick her hand in Rome, and she sticks her hand in sort of that like ceramic wall fresco thing, and they say if she's lying, it'll bite her hand off. That idea of, that image has stuck with me since I was a kid, and being confronted on your journey with, are you lying, was always a very interesting concept to me. So then this one is one of my most recent works. So I started, this top 3/4 is a pumice and crackle paste base, because I wanted it to look like when you're in like a bad, like a bad Greek restaurant, they often have those wall frescoes that are in disrepair and kind of falling apart. And so I liked this idea of doing a wall fresco, and then in front of it, at the bottom, is this scene done on a normal background as if this is the person laying in bed under the wall fresco. And I had this idea for, so it was right around when I was turning 25, and I was thinking about this kind of like everything is changing and I'm in a moment of real change and something's gotta give, not even necessarily negatively. And what parts of yourself do you really take into adulthood and what parts do you leave behind in adolescence? And that in a way it is kind of a destruction of yourself and of who you used to be. So I had this idea of this figure having, with this stone, having destroyed this fresco of themselves. And so they've torn these gashes into it, and you see the crackled pieces of the fresco laying all on their bed before they kind of fell asleep, surrounded by, I have these 3 images, which are kind of funny because they were images that were on the wall of my studio. This one is a drawing I did straight on the canvas, but it represents a canvas I had up because I wanted to show sort of what I am actively thinking about as I go through this happen to be these 3 images on my studio wall. And I wanted to preserve this exact moment when I felt like I was having this transition. And in the same way, as with all great journeys, you want your Gitrish figure. And so this is my cat Claude. And the idea that there is this animal central to change. I also really do like any kind of totem pole composition where you have the cat stacked with the figure, stacked with the 3rd figure. That's always very exciting. And then the last painting, I believe, in this show is this one. So I did this one just a couple years ago now. right after I graduated from RISD, and so probably been about 2024 when I did this piece. And I was kind of looking at this cemetery. It's based on Hollywood Forever, which is near my childhood home. And looking at this idea of you're kind of in the cemetery, and I had this phrase I'd been saying a lot, kind of a cliche, but talking it to death. And the things you talk about with your friends, that you're sort of talking to death. You're sort of trying to bury and unbury these things that have happened to you that you just can't stop talking about. And at a certain point, you're kind of these ghostly figures in this cemetery of things you're talking to death. And so this one was really fun and happened really fast. This was a quick painting, but it was very cathartic and very exciting. It was the first, I did the painting and then I took a rag and I wiped out all the headstones. So it's just the canvas that's under. And then that's the idea of like taking away too. Like the memorial to these moments was just something I took away. That's always what's exciting to me, is when I find kind of these, I don't know, like little verbal tricks, little clever sayings in what I'm doing to create a canvas. If the things I'm trying to talk about are things that are just what I'm literally taking away from myself, in that sense that I take away the monuments. So yeah, that's my work for the show.